I was halfway across Mercer Bridge when the fog swallowed my headlights. Not dimmed them. Swallowed them. 1 second I could see the faded yellow center line stretching toward town, and the next it was like someone had draped a white sheet over my windshield. My high beams reflected straight back into my eyes. I slammed on the brakes so hard the tires screamed against wet asphalt. The truck stopped inches from the rusted guardrail. For a moment, everything was silent. No wind. No insects. No traffic. Then the emergency alert on my phone buzzed. Not rang. Buzzed once. The screen lit up with a notification I'd never seen before. Mercer County Emergency Management. Fog event in progress. Do not exit your vehicle. If you hear someone you know calling your name, do not respond. The message disappeared before I could even finish reading it. No weather alert. No warning tone. Just gone. I stared at the screen. Then someone knocked on my driver's side window. 3 slow taps. Tap. 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 I turned so fast I nearly threw my neck out. There was nobody there. Only white. An endless wall of white pressing against the glass. Another knock. This time on the passenger side. 3 more taps. Slower. Closer. Tap. 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 Something was walking around my truck. My name is Daniel Mercer. I'm 32 years old. I grew up in Ash Creek, Oregon. Population. Officially? About 1,200. Realistically? Closer to 900 now. People leave. Some disappear. Nobody asks too many questions. I was one of the lucky ones. I got out after high school. Joined a utility contractor in Portland. Spent almost 12 years inspecting electrical substations across the Northwest. I hadn't planned on ever moving back. Then my father died. Heart attack. At least that's what the death certificate said. My mother refused to leave the house alone after that, so I packed everything I owned into my truck and drove back to Ash Creek. That drive ended with me sitting on Mercer Bridge, listening to something circle my truck inside impossible fog. Looking back now, I think my mistake wasn't coming home. It was assuming the town I remembered still existed. People think every small town has an urban legend. Some creepy story parents tell kids to keep them from wandering into the woods. Don't whistle after dark. Don't walk near the old cemetery. Don't knock on abandoned houses. Ash Creek had one too. Except nobody called it a legend. They just called it the fog. Not fog. The fog. Always with capital letters when they wrote it in old newspapers. Like it was someone's name. Or something alive. Growing up, nobody ever explained it. Adults simply stopped talking whenever kids entered the room. If someone mentioned fog rolling through town, conversation ended. My grandfather would stand up. Lock every window. Close every curtain. Then he'd say the same thing every single time. Count everyone inside. Not. Lock the doors. Not. Stay quiet. Count everyone. I never understood why. Until the night I came home. The knocking stopped. I don't know how long I sat frozen behind the steering wheel. Maybe 30 seconds. Maybe 10 minutes. Time felt wrong inside that fog. My dashboard clock blinked 8:17. Then 8:12. Then 8:19. The radio crackled to life. Static. More static. Then a man's voice. County dispatch. All units. Repeat. Visual confirmation impossible. Maintain interior shelter. The transmission cut out. A woman replaced him. Don't let them inside. Static again. Then, my father's voice. Daniel. Every muscle in my body locked. No. That wasn't possible. I gripped the steering wheel tighter. Daniel. Exactly the way he'd sounded before he died. Calm. Patient. Son, open the door. I couldn't breathe. Logic screamed at me that dead people don't talk over FM radio. But grief doesn't listen to logic. For one horrible second, I almost reached for the handle. Then I remembered the emergency alert. If you hear someone you know calling your name. The radio went silent. My father's voice never came back. Instead, something scraped along the side of my truck. Metal against metal. Like fingernails dragging across the doors. The fog cleared all at once. Not gradually. Instantly. One heartbeat, there was nothing beyond my windshield. The next. The road was empty. Clear. Moonlight reflected off the river below. No footprints. No people. No emergency vehicles. Nothing. I sat there another 5 minutes before forcing myself to drive. Ash Creek sat less than 2 miles beyond the bridge. At first glance, everything looked normal. The old gas station. The grocery store. The church with its leaning bell tower. Even the faded welcome sign. Welcome to Ash Creek. Home of the Fall Harvest Festival. Someone had spray-painted another sentence underneath. Don't trust the fog. The paint looked fresh. My mother's porch light was on. So were every light inside the house. Kitchen. Living room. Hallway. Bedrooms. Every single one. She opened the front door before I reached the steps. Then immediately grabbed my face with both hands. Did you stop? What? On the bridge. I hesitated. Her expression changed instantly. You stopped. I couldn't see anything. Did you get out? No. Did anyone speak to you? I felt the blood drain from my face. How did you know that? She didn't answer. Instead, she looked past me. Toward the road. Toward the darkness beyond the mailbox. Then she whispered, Get inside. She locked the door behind me. Deadbolt. Chain. Another lock I'd never seen before. Heavy steel. Military grade by the look of it. Every window had new bolts. The curtains weren't ordinary curtains either. They were thick black fabric lined with something metallic. Almost like radiation shielding. You expecting a tornado? I joked. She didn't smile. It's Wednesday. So? She stared at me. You really don't remember? Dinner sat untouched on the table. The television wasn't on. Neither was the radio. Even the wall clock had stopped. 8:17. The exact time I'd first entered the fog. You need to listen carefully, Mom said. There are rules now. I laughed. I know how that sounds. No, she interrupted. You don't. She reached into a kitchen drawer. Pulled out a folded sheet of yellow paper. The edges were worn from being handled hundreds of times. Across the top, handwritten in black marker, were 6 words. When the fog comes, remember this. Below that, a numbered list. She pushed it across the table. I started reading. 1. Count everyone inside the house. Count twice. 2. If the number changes, do not acknowledge it. 3. Never answer anyone knocking after the siren. 4. If someone outside claims to be family, ask what happened on October 18th. If they answer correctly, do not let them in anyway. I looked up. What is this? Keep reading. 5. If the fog reaches the second-floor windows, go to the basement immediately. 6. If you hear children laughing, pray you don't recognize their voices. I looked back at her. This is a joke. I wish it was. Outside. A siren echoed across town. Long. Low. Nothing like a tornado warning. My mother closed her eyes. It came early. Came? The fog. I frowned. The windows had already begun turning white. One by one. As if someone outside was painting over the glass. Then, 3 slow knocks echoed from the front door. Tap. 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 My mother didn't move. Didn't breathe. She only whispered 5 words. We already counted everyone. I didn't answer. I didn't even look toward the front door. Every instinct in my body screamed that if I looked, I'd see someone standing on the porch. Someone I knew. Someone I wanted to believe was real. The knocking came again. 3 slow taps. Not louder. Just closer somehow. Like the sound wasn't traveling through the wood anymore. It was traveling through the house itself. My mother folded the yellow sheet and shoved it back into the drawer. "Kitchen light," she whispered. I reached over and switched it off. The room fell into darkness except for the dim glow above the stove. She shook her head. "No." Then she unplugged the bulb. The room went completely black. Only moonlight, if it even was moonlight, filtered through the metallic curtains. "You don't leave lights on during a fog event." "A fog event? That's what the county calls it now." "Now?" She ignored the question. Instead, she grabbed a flashlight from the cabinet. It wasn't turned on. She simply held it in her lap. Ready. Waiting. The knocking stopped. For exactly 10 seconds. Then someone tried the doorknob. Slowly. Carefully. Back. And forth. The old brass handle clicked once. Twice. Then stopped. I stood. My mother grabbed my wrist with surprising strength. "Sit. Someone's out there." "I know. We should call the sheriff." "No. Mom. They won't come." "What?" "They don't come during the fog anymore." I stared at her. She wasn't joking. She wasn't panicking either. She sounded exhausted. Like someone explaining gravity. "They stopped sending deputies 5 years ago." "Why?" She looked toward the front door. "Because they kept bringing the wrong people back." The doorknob stopped moving. Silence returned. Then, a familiar voice. "Mrs. Mercer?" I froze. That voice belonged to our neighbor, Tom Alvarez. He'd lived across the street since I was 10. Retired firefighter. Never left town. Always mowing his lawn. Always waving. He sounded scared. "Mrs. Mercer, please." No response from my mother. "My truck went into the ditch." Silence. "I think my leg's broken." Nothing. "I just need to use your phone." His breathing sounded shaky. Cold. Desperate. "I can see your lights." My mother leaned close enough that I could feel her breath. "Don't answer." "But that's Tom." "No. It is." "No." "How do you know?" She whispered one sentence that made my stomach tighten. "Tom died in March." The voice outside laughed. Not loudly. Just once. Like someone who'd overheard our conversation. Then it changed. Not gradually. Instantly. Now it belonged to a little girl. "See, can someone help my mommy?" I felt every hair on my arms stand up. The crying sounded heartbreakingly real. "I can't find her." A hiccup. Another sob. "I'm cold." The voice couldn't have belonged to a child older than 7. It cracked. Shivered. Exactly the way terrified kids sound. Every part of me wanted to open the door. My mother squeezed my wrist harder. "They always try children after neighbors." "They?" She didn't answer. Outside. The crying stopped. The silence that followed felt worse. Then every dog in town started barking. Not one. Not 2. Hundreds. Different breeds. Different distances. The sound rolled across Ash Creek like a wave. Then, all at once, every dog yelped. As if something had struck them simultaneously. Silence. Complete silence. No barking. No insects. No wind. Nothing. Even the refrigerator compressor shut off. I realized. I couldn't hear electricity anymore. The siren sounded again. This time closer. It wasn't mounted on a building. It was moving. Passing slowly down our street. I pulled back the curtain a fraction of an inch. My mother hissed. Too late. I'd already looked. A military truck rolled down Maple Street at less than 5 miles an hour. No headlights. Only rotating amber lights. The windows were covered with steel mesh. The doors had no markings except faded white lettering. MCA. 3 soldiers sat in the back. Not watching the road. Watching the houses. Every one of them wore full-face respirators. One of them noticed our curtain move. He slowly raised one gloved hand. Not waving. Warning. Then he pointed. Not at me. Behind me. I spun around. Nobody. When I looked back, the convoy was gone. It couldn't have traveled more than 50 feet. Yet the street was empty. What's MCA? I whispered. My mother looked genuinely confused. You've never heard of them? No. They replaced FEMA. No, they didn't. She frowned. Daniel. They absolutely did not. She stared at me for several seconds. Then quietly asked, What year do you think it is? I laughed. Seriously? What year? 2026. She blinked. Then slowly sat down. Oh God! What? Her voice trembled for the first time all night. They're taking more time now. What are you talking about? She pointed toward the calendar hanging beside the refrigerator. I walked over. The year printed across the top wasn't 2026. It wasn't even close. 2032. I frowned. This isn't funny. It's not. This calendar's wrong. It isn't. I drove here this afternoon. You left Portland 6 years ago. No, You called me every Sunday. No. You missed my birthday 3 years in a row. No. You buried your father. I know that. You buried him in 2026. I couldn't breathe. No. You've been gone ever since. The room tilted. I grabbed the counter to keep from falling. My wallet. I pulled out my driver's license. Expiration date. My truck registration. Insurance card. None of those dates made sense. I dug my phone from my pocket. No signal. Battery, 61%. The lock screen showed dozens of missed notifications. Hundreds. Messages from numbers I didn't recognize. Voicemails. Emails. Months. Years. I opened the most recent voicemail. A woman answered. Crying. Daniel, if you ever listen to this, please stop coming back to the bridge. The message ended. I had never heard her voice before. But somehow, I knew she was my wife. Before I could process any of it, someone knocked upstairs. Not at the front door. Inside the house. 3 taps. Directly above us. I looked toward the ceiling. My mother went pale. No. Another 3 knocks. The attic. Tap. 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 Something heavy shifted overhead. Slow footsteps crossed the ceiling. Toward the attic ladder. There was no way anyone could be up there. I'd watched Mom lock the house. She whispered. We counted 2. I nodded. You and me. She didn't answer. Instead, she slowly looked toward the hallway. Toward the attic pull-down cord. It was swinging gently. As if someone had just let go of it. Then came the sound that made my blood turn to ice. A man's voice. From directly above us. Calm. Patient. Perfectly familiar. Mom? It was my voice. Exactly my voice. I think there's someone downstairs pretending to be me. I don't know which terrified me more. Hearing my own voice. Or watching my mother refuse to look up. She didn't flinch. Didn't cry. Didn't even seem surprised. She just closed her eyes and whispered. It found you faster this time. The thing in the attic laughed. Not loudly. Just one quiet chuckle. My chuckle. I can hear you, it said. I know you're scared. I instinctively answered. Who are you? My mother slapped a hand over my mouth so hard my teeth cut into my lip. Her eyes widened. For the first time that night, she looked genuinely afraid. Not of the voice. Of me. When the thing upstairs spoke again. It wasn't answering my question. It was answering hers. You shouldn't have brought him back. Silence. Then the footsteps resumed. Slow. Measured. Crossing from one end of the attic to the other. Except, the house wasn't that big. Those footsteps continued for nearly a full minute. There wasn't enough attic above us for someone to walk that far. The footsteps stopped directly over the hallway. Something heavy dragged across the floorboards. A scraping sound. Wood against wood. My mother stood. We're leaving the kitchen. You said not to move. I said not to panic. Where are we going? The basement. I looked toward the window. The fog isn't at the second floor. It doesn't have to be anymore. She grabbed the flashlight. Still didn't turn it on. She opened the pantry door. Behind the shelves of canned food was another door I'd never seen before. Steel. Painted the same color as the wall. No handle on the outside. 3 locks. A keypad. And scratched into the metal. Do not open until morning. Someone had scratched those words from the inside. What is this? It wasn't always here. When was it built? After the school. What happened at the school? She hesitated. I'll tell you later. You keep saying that. I know. She unlocked the first deadbolt. Then the second. Then entered a 6-digit code. The steel door clicked open. Cold air poured out. Not damp basement air. Cold. Like opening a commercial freezer. Concrete stairs disappeared into darkness. I followed her down. She locked the door behind us. Only then did she switch on the flashlight. The beam revealed something I wasn't expecting. The basement had become a bunker. Metal shelving lined every wall. Enough canned food for months. Water barrels. Medical supplies. Battery banks. Generators. Shortwave radios. Oxygen tanks. Stacks of identical yellow rule sheets. Dozens of them. Each one dated. Each one different. Why are there so many? The rules change. That sentence settled in my stomach like lead. What do you mean they change? She handed me the oldest copy. Fog Safety Procedures, October 1998. There were only 3 rules. The newest version had 17. I picked up another. 9 rules. Another. 13 rules. Every few years. New instructions appeared. Some rules vanished. Others were crossed out in red ink. One had simply been replaced with a single handwritten sentence. Rule 8 is no longer valid. They learned. I looked up. Who wrote these? No one knows. They just appeared? She nodded. On people's kitchen tables. I laughed nervously. Seriously? Every household received the same page. How? No one ever saw who delivered them. A radio crackled from the workbench. Neither of us had touched it. Static. Then a calm male voice. This is your midnight advisory. It sounded official. Professional. Almost comforting. If you are hearing this broadcast, your residence remains outside the convergence zone. My mother lunged forward. Turned the radio off. The voice continued. Without electricity. Do not trust emergency broadcasts that fail authentication. She unplugged the power cable. Still talking. The fog imitates authority before it imitates family. She ripped the batteries out. The speaker kept speaking. If you hear your own voice. Silence. The radio died. Neither of us moved. Then another voice came over a different radio across the room. This one frantic. Unit 7 requesting immediate extraction. Gunfire. Heavy breathing. They're inside the vehicle. Someone screamed. Another burst of gunfire. The transmission dissolved into static. I looked at my mother. Who was that? They stopped using call signs years ago. What? They don't want the fog learning names. I wanted answers. Real ones. Mom. She met my eyes. What happened to this town? She looked older than I remembered. Not physically. Emotionally. Like she'd been carrying something alone for years. It started with the bridge. The bridge? She nodded. In 1989, a logging truck disappeared crossing Mercer Bridge during a fog bank. The truck was found the next morning. Engine running. Doors closed. Driver gone. Police searched for weeks. Nothing. Then, the driver walked back into town. 32 days later. Barefoot. Perfectly healthy. He said he'd only been missing 15 minutes. Everyone believed him. Until his wife disappeared. Then his son. Then the neighbors. Every person who vanished had one thing in common. The last person to see them was him. Eventually people stopped inviting him anywhere. Stopped answering his calls. One morning, he vanished again. This time for good. 3 days later. The fog rolled into town without the river. Without weather. Without wind. Straight through the streets. And it hasn't really left since. Why didn't the government evacuate everyone? They tried. And? She gave a sad smile. They evacuated the wrong town. I frowned. What does that mean? There used to be another Ash Creek. What? 30 miles east. There isn't. There was. She opened an old county map. 2 towns. Same name. Same population. Same river. Same highway. Identical. One was circled in black marker. The other. Completely erased. Not crossed out. Erased. Like someone had scrubbed it from history. Which one are we in? I don't know anymore. The lights flickered. The generator hadn't even been running. The flashlight dimmed. Somewhere above us. A door slammed. Then another. Then another. Every door in the house. One after another. As if someone was checking every room. Looking. Searching. The footsteps returned. Only now. There wasn't just one set. There were dozens. Walking across the first floor. Walking through the walls. Walking beneath the floor. Impossible directions. Different speeds. Some running. Some limping. One sounded like bare feet dragging across concrete. Another sounded far too heavy. Like something with hooves. The bunker door shuddered. Not from impact. From pressure. Like someone had leaned their forehead against the other side. Then came a whisper. Soft enough that I almost missed it. Daniel! Not my father's voice. Not mine. A woman's. Gentle. Broken. I found you. I froze. That voice. The voicemail. My wife. My mother slowly shook her head. No. Tears welled in my eyes. It sounds exactly like. I know. Another whisper. I've been looking for you for 6 years. My chest tightened. I remember the bridge. I remember the fog. I remember what they did to us. I stepped toward the bunker door before I even realized I was moving. My mother grabbed my arm. Don't. What if it's really her? My mother didn't answer. Instead, she reached into a drawer beside the radio and pulled out a framed photograph. It showed me. Standing beside a woman with dark hair. Both of us smiling. There was a little girl sitting on my shoulders. Maybe 5 years old. I couldn't remember taking that picture. I couldn't remember either of them. Then I noticed the date printed in the corner. October 17th, 2032. Tomorrow's date. My mother whispered, almost too quietly to hear. You didn't just lose 6 years, Daniel. She looked toward the bunker door as another soft knock echoed from the other side. You lost everyone who tried to bring you back. The photograph slipped from my hands. The glass didn't break. It landed face up on the concrete floor, illuminated by the weak beam of the flashlight. I stared at the little girl sitting on my shoulders. She had my eyes. My crooked smile. One of her front teeth was missing. She couldn't have been older than 5. I searched my memory so hard it made my head ache. Nothing. No birthday parties. No first words. No scraped knees. No bedtime stories. It was like someone had cut 6 entire years out of my life with a razor. The woman beside me. My wife. I recognized her face now. Not because I remembered her. Because my heart did. That strange, instinctive certainty that comes before memory. Like hearing a song you haven't listened to in decades. You don't remember the lyrics. Until the chorus begins. Outside the bunker door. 3 soft knocks. Then her voice again. Daniel. Long pause. Emma keeps asking where you are. Emma. The little girl's name. The second she said it, something cracked open inside my head. A swing set. Yellow. A backyard. Tiny pink rain boots lined up beside the porch. Someone laughing while bubbles floated through summer sunlight. A little girl running toward me. Daddy! The memory ended as suddenly as it began. I stumbled backward. My vision blurred. What is happening to me? My mother didn't answer immediately. Instead, she crouched beside the photograph and picked it up carefully. You remember pieces? I remember, a yard. She nodded. It always starts that way. What starts that way? The calling. The bunker lights flickered. I hadn't noticed before, but there were LED strips running along the ceiling. They weren't connected to the flashlight. They ran off a separate battery system. One by one. Half of them went dark. The room became smaller. The shadows deeper. The radio hissed again. Static. Then one clear sentence. Memory restoration has reached 12%. I spun toward it. Nobody had touched the radio. Static. Subject remains responsive. Another burst of static. Recommend immediate retrieval. The transmission ended. My mother quietly unplugged every radio in the bunker. Every single one. That wasn't a broadcast. No. Who was talking? She looked straight at me. I don't know whether they work for us anymore. I hated answers like that. What does that even mean? It means... She struggled to find the words. They used to save people. And now? I think they're studying them. Who's they? The MCA. The convo? She nodded. I've never heard of them. You weren't supposed to. A deep metallic groan echoed through the ceiling. Not from the house. From outside. It sounded massive. Like a cargo ship scraping against steel. Except we were nearly 100 miles from the ocean. The sound continued for almost 30 seconds. Then, everything vibrated. The shelves. The canned food. The flashlight beam. Dust drifted from the ceiling. What was that? My mother whispered. It crossed the river. What crossed the river? She didn't answer. She just looked toward the bunker door. As if she hoped it hadn't heard me. Then came something even stranger. The emergency siren stopped. Not faded. Stopped. Mid-note. Silence followed. Absolute silence. No footsteps upstairs. No whispers. No knocking. Nothing. Even my own breathing sounded too loud. My mother looked terrified. Far more terrified than she'd been while voices were outside. What's wrong? She answered with one sentence. It never goes quiet. 5 seconds. 10. 20. Nothing. Then, a little girl's laughter. Not outside. Not upstairs. Inside the bunker. I whipped around. The flashlight swept across shelves. Water barrels. The workbench. Nothing. Another giggle. This time behind me. I turned again. Empty. Again. Closer. Daddy? I froze. It wasn't coming from the room. It was coming from inside one of the air vents. Daddy. A tiny hand reached through the vent grate. Small. Pale. Covered in dirt. Just for a second. Then it vanished. I lunged toward it. My mother tackled me before I got there. No! We hit the floor hard. She wrapped both arms around me. Don't touch the vents! That was Emma! No! I saw her. I know you did. Something began crawling through the ventilation ducts. Slowly. Metal creaked overhead. Not like a rat. Not like a person. Too many limbs. Too much weight. It stopped directly above us. Then, a single droplet fell from the vent. Not water. Black. Thick. It landed on the concrete with a soft plink. The drop began moving. Not spreading. Moving. Like liquid searching for something. It flowed toward me. Against the slope of the floor. I watched it climb over tiny cracks in the concrete. It reached my boot. Then stopped. My reflection appeared inside it. Except, the reflection smiled. I wasn't smiling. The liquid retreated back toward the vent, disappearing into darkness. Neither of us spoke for almost a minute. Finally, my mother opened an old filing cabinet in the corner. Inside were folders. Hundreds of them. Each labeled with a name. I recognized dozens. My third-grade teacher. The mailman. My high school football coach. The town dentist. Every folder had one thing stamped across the front. Returned. What are these? She handed me the first one. Inside was a black and white photograph. The man looked ordinary. Late 40s. Plaid shirt. Beard. Paperclip to the photo was a report. Subject returned after 11 days. Behavior normal. Voice normal. Medical examination normal. The last page was handwritten. Day 18. Wife reports subject blinked without closing eyelids. I frowned. What? She handed me another. Returned after 6 hours. Last note. Day 41. Subject no longer recognizes mirrors. Another. Returned after 2 months. Last note. Day 9. Subject insists there are 2 moons every Wednesday. Another. Returned after 19 minutes. Last note. Day 73. Subject disappeared during clear weather. There were hundreds. Every one ended the same way. Missing again. They all vanished twice? She nodded. The second time. They never came back. How many? She closed the cabinet. Too many to count. I looked around the bunker. The food. The generators. The rule sheets. You've been preparing for years. She nodded again. Because someday. She hesitated. I knew you'd come home. Before I could answer. The steel bunker door beeped. Once. The keypad lit up. No one had touched it. A green light flashed. Access granted? No, my mother whispered. The first lock clicked open. By itself. Then the second. Then the third. I rushed forward and threw my weight against the door. Something on the other side pushed back. Not hard. Just enough to let me know it was there. The pressure felt human. Then a calm male voice came through the steel. Professional. Confident. This is Mercer County Emergency Anomaly Authority. My mother went pale. The voice continued. We have thermal confirmation of 2 survivors. I looked at my mother. She silently mouthed one word. Lie. We're opening the shelter. The keypad beeped again. I shouted through the door. If you're really MCA, tell me the authentication code. There was a pause. Then the man answered immediately. October 18th. My mother's face drained of color. That was the correct challenge. The one from Rule 4. If someone outside claims to be family, ask what happened on October 18th. If they answer correctly, do not let them in any way. The voice on the other side spoke again. This time, it used my father's voice. Son. Then my wife's. Daniel. Then my own. I know you're scared. Then something impossible. The little girl's voice. Daddy. Soft. Trembling. Why won't you open the door? My hand tightened on the handle despite every warning. Because for the first time all night, one question drowned out every other. My fingers wrapped around the steel handle before I realized I was moving. The cold metal bit into my palm. My mother caught my wrist just as I started to pull. "Daniel!" Her voice cracked. "Look at me!" I couldn't. All I could hear was Emma crying on the other side of the door. "Daddy, please!" The sound wasn't loud. It didn't have to be. It reached places inside me I didn't even know existed. "I don't want to stay out here." I squeezed my eyes shut. Memories flashed like broken film. Tiny hands covered in finger paint. A bedtime story about dragons. A stuffed rabbit with one ear missing. A birthday cake with 6 candles. No. 5. She'd only turned 5. I remembered lighting those candles. I remembered her laughing because she'd blown them out before we finished singing. I gasped. The memory vanished. The voice outside whispered, "See? You remember." My mother pulled me away from the door with surprising force. "That's what it wants. What if she's alive? What if she isn't?" "I left them." "No. I abandoned them." "No. I don't even remember them." Her expression softened. "That's exactly why you can't trust this." I stared at her. "You think it's reading my mind?" She hesitated. "I think it doesn't need to." The bunker lights dimmed again. Another strip went dark. Only half the room remained illuminated. The shadows looked wrong. Longer than they should have been. I noticed mine first. My shadow wasn't matching my movements. I lifted my left hand. My shadow lifted its right. A mirror image. Except it kept moving after I stopped. Slowly. Its head turned toward the bunker door. Mine didn't. Then it raised one finger to where its lips should have been. As if telling me to stay quiet. I blinked. The shadow was normal again. The voice outside disappeared. Silence returned. Then, a knock. Not on the bunker door. Behind us. 3 taps. We turned together. There was no second door. Only a concrete wall. The tapping came again. From inside the wall itself. Tap. 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 A faint voice followed. "Mr. Mercer?" Male. Middle-aged. Professional. "I'm Deputy Collins." My heart skipped. Deputy Ben Collins. He'd coached Little League when I was a kid. "I know you're down there," my mother whispered. "He retired 20 years ago." The wall answered her. "I never retired." My blood froze. He couldn't have hurt her. The concrete between us was nearly a foot thick. Yet the voice replied naturally. Like we were standing face to face. "I've been looking for your family." Another pause. "We found your wife." I clenched my fists. My mother slowly backed away from the wall. "So did they." The flashlight flickered. Not from low batteries. Something passed through the beam. Not in front of it. Inside it. For less than a second. A silhouette. Tall. Too thin. Walking through the light itself. Then it was gone. I swung the flashlight around the room. Nothing. "What was that?" My mother looked up. "Don't follow moving shadows." "I wasn't." "You saw one." "How did you know?" "Because everyone sees one." The bunker temperature dropped another 10 degrees. Our breath became visible. The pipes overhead groaned. Then, water began dripping from the ceiling. Only it wasn't coming from the pipes. It seeped directly through solid concrete. Dark gray water. Cold enough that it steamed. The drops collected on the floor. Instead of spreading, they formed tiny circles. Perfect rings. Every ring identical. 1. Then 2. Then 10. Then dozens. Each no bigger than a coffee mug. "What is that?" My mother stepped carefully around them. "Don't step inside." "Why?" "I don't know." "You've never tested it?" She looked at me like I'd suggested jumping off a cliff. Nobody who tested them came back. The circles began reflecting things that weren't in the room. I knelt beside the nearest one. Instead of seeing the bunker ceiling, I saw the Ash Creek Library. Bookshelves. Reading tables. Sunlight through dusty windows. There were people inside. Normal people. Talking. Smiling. No fog. No panic. A little boy ran past carrying comic books. I recognized the building. Except, our library had burned down when I was 14. The reflection looked brand new. Another puddle showed the old movie theater. Open. Crowded. Children buying popcorn. That theater had closed before I graduated high school. Another puddle. The elementary school. Teachers waving as kids climbed off buses. No boarded windows. No fences. No military trucks. What am I looking at? My mother's face tightened. Don't stare too long. What is it? I think. She swallowed. Those are places that still exist. Still exist where? She didn't answer. Because she didn't know. Or didn't want to. The puddles rippled simultaneously. Every single reflection changed. Now they showed the same location. Mercer Bridge. Covered in fog. A single man stood in the middle of it. Facing away from us. He looked familiar. Broad shoulders. Brown jacket. Work boots. He slowly turned. It was me. Not today's me. Older. Thinner. Beard. Dark circles beneath exhausted eyes. He looked straight up. As if he could see me watching from inside the puddle. Then he mouthed 3 words. Don't cross again. The puddle shattered. Not physically. The images exploded into black water that soaked into the concrete and disappeared. My pulse hammered in my ears. What the hell was that? Before my mother could answer, a deafening alarm erupted upstairs. Not the town siren. The house itself. A mechanical voice echoed through the ventilation system. Containment failure. 5 seconds later. Containment failure. Again. And again. The voice wasn't coming from any speaker I'd ever seen. It sounded built into the walls. My mother stared upward in horror. No. What? It found the house. What does that mean? She didn't answer. Instead, she ran to a metal locker bolted to the wall. Inside were 2 heavy backpacks. Respirators. Chemical glow sticks. Emergency blankets. A folded map. She shoved one pack into my hands. We're leaving. You said the bunker was safest. It was. What changed? She looked toward the ceiling. It knows where we are now. A tremendous crash shook the house above us. Wood splintered. Glass exploded. Something impossibly heavy landed on the first floor. The entire bunker trembled. Dust poured from the ceiling. Then came footsteps. Not human footsteps. Each one sounded like a telephone pole being dropped onto hardwood. Boom. 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 The footsteps stopped directly above the bunker. Silence. Then, every radio in the room turned on at once. Different voices. Different channels. All saying exactly the same sentence. Subject located. Every radio switched again. Memory recovery at 41%. Again. Do not allow subject to remember October 18th. My mother dropped the backpack. For the first time that night. She looked completely defeated. I stared at her. What happened on October 18th? She closed her eyes. You opened the door. Before I could ask another question, the bunker ceiling cracked. A long fracture raced across the concrete. Another followed. Chunks of dust rained onto the floor. The massive footsteps resumed. Directly above us. Slowly circling. Searching. Then the concrete bulged downward. Just slightly. As if an enormous weight had settled on top of it. Another crack split across the ceiling. This time, something black seeped through it. Not water. Fog. The fog wasn't staying above the ceiling anymore. It was leaking through solid concrete. Thin tendrils drifted downward like living fingers. Where they touched the floor, the air shimmered. And from inside that shimmering mist, a silhouette began to emerge. Human-shaped. Almost. It had my height. My build. My posture. Its face remained hidden inside the white haze. But when it finally spoke, it didn't use my voice. It used the one voice I now wanted to hear more than any other. My daughter's. Daddy. The figure took one slow step into the bunker. This isn't the first time you've watched me die. Daddy. The word echoed through the bunker long after the figure stopped speaking. Not because the acoustics carried it. Because my mind did. Every corner of my memory seemed to repeat it. Daddy. 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 The silhouette stood motionless inside the drifting fog. No face. No visible eyes. Just the outline of a little girl about 5 years old. The same height as Emma in the photograph. The same uneven ponytail. The same tiny sneakers. One shoelace untied. I knew that detail without understanding how. Something inside me recognized her before my memory ever could. She tilted her head. You always cry here. My knees almost gave out. My mother stepped between us. Don't. The little figure didn't react. Instead, she looked past my mother. Directly at me. She never lets you remember. My mother shouted. Stop talking to him. The child sighed. Not angrily. Sadly. I've heard you say that. Every Wednesday. The room became impossibly quiet. Every Wednesday. The phrase landed somewhere deep in my stomach. I'd heard my mother say it earlier. It's Wednesday. As though that explained everything. I looked at her. What happens every Wednesday? She didn't answer. The child did. You come home. The flashlight slipped from my hand. It hit the concrete and rolled in a slow circle, sending the beam around the bunker. Every time the light passed over the child, she disappeared. Every time the beam moved away, she was standing a little closer. Not walking. Simply closer. The flashlight completed another circle. Now she was only 10 feet away. My mother grabbed the flashlight and held it steady on the floor. Don't let the beam move. Why? Because they're between the frames. I stared at her. What does that even mean? She whispered. They move when your brain isn't looking. The sentence made no sense. Yet somehow, it felt true. The child smiled. You figured that out before. My mother closed her eyes. Oh God. The child giggled. You almost solved it. Then, every clock in the bunker started ticking. There hadn't been any clocks. Now there were 6. One on the workbench. One above the shelves. One beside the filing cabinet. An old grandfather clock stood in the corner where empty space had been moments before. None of them matched. 8:17. 11:42. 2:03. Midnight. 6:55. October 18th. One clock wasn't showing a time. It was showing a date. I walked toward it without thinking. The second hand spun backward. Every tick made my ears ring. Every backward second brought another memory. Emma asleep on my chest. My wife laughing in the kitchen. Building a treehouse. Teaching Emma to ride a bicycle. Christmas morning. A camping trip. Hundreds of moments poured back into my head so quickly that I collapsed to one knee. Then, they stopped. One memory remained hidden. Like a missing page torn from the middle of a book. October 18th. No matter how hard I reached for it, there was only white. Fog. You blocked it. I looked up. The little girl was standing beside the clock. Still faceless. Still smiling. You asked them to. I don't understand. You begged them. My mother shouted. Liar! The child slowly turned toward her. No. Another pause. That's your job. Before either of us could speak, a sharp electronic chirp echoed through the bunker. Different from the radios. Different from the sirens. It came from a black metal case sitting beneath the workbench. My mother froze. Oh no! She opened it. Inside was a rugged military tablet. Its screen had turned on by itself. Large red letters filled the display. MCA remote access established. Below that, a live camera feed. Our bunker. From above, I could see both of us standing there. And the little girl. The camera could see her too. Which meant she wasn't a hallucination. A line of text appeared beneath the image. Subject D14 has made contact with Echo Instance. Another line. Do not allow communication to exceed 6 minutes. Then another. Memory cascade risk, critical. I looked at my mother. What is D14? She looked away. You. No. She nodded. No. You were assigned that designation. By who? The MCA. When? After the first recovery. Recovery. Not rescue. Recovery. That word changed everything. The child looked at the tablet. They're watching again. My mother slammed the screen shut. It reopened by itself. Another message appeared. If subject remembers October 18th, event will restart. What event? Silence. I looked at my mother. She refused to answer. I looked at the child. She whispered. The town dies. A violent impact shook the bunker. The steel door bent inward. Another impact. The hinges screamed. Whatever was outside. It wasn't pretending anymore. No voices. No knocking. Just raw force. The third hit left a visible dent in 6-inch steel. My mother pulled a revolver from the locker. I stared at her. You have a gun? I've had one for years. Will it stop them? She checked the cylinder. No. Then why? It's for me. I couldn't process that. Another impact. The bunker lights failed completely. Darkness. Only the flashlight remained. Then, the emergency glow sticks inside the backpacks activated by themselves. Soft green light filled the room. Enough to see. Not enough to feel safe. The child had vanished. I spun in circles. Where did she go? No answer. Then I heard her whisper. From behind me. Daddy. I turned. Nobody. Then from my left. I remember. Right. You promised. Above. You said. Below. You'd never leave me. The voices circled us from impossible directions. The revolver trembled in my mother's hands. I can't do this again. Again. That word. Everything kept happening again. Every Wednesday. Every fog. Every bridge crossing. I grabbed her shoulders. What aren't you telling me? Tears filled her eyes. You made me promise. What promise? If you came back. I wasn't allowed to let you remember. Why? She couldn't say it. The answer came from somewhere inside the ventilation system. From dozens of voices speaking together. Because you asked her not to. Something inside me broke. Not emotionally. Mentally. Pieces clicked into place. The bridge. The missing years. The repeated Wednesdays. The government. The memory loss. The voices. None of it fit together. Unless. This has happened before. My mother looked at me with absolute despair. Not once. Not twice. Hundreds of times. Another memory burst through. I was standing inside this same bunker. Older. Exhausted. Holding Emma. She wasn't moving. My wife was crying. Outside. The fog was speaking with my voice. I remembered saying one sentence. If I forget, don't let me cross the bridge again. The memory disappeared before I could reach the rest of it. I staggered backward. My mother began sobbing. You remember too much. The bunker door exploded inward. Not shattered. Folded. As if struck by something impossibly strong. Fog poured through the opening. Not drifting. Flowing. Like a living tide. Within it, shapes. Hundreds of them. Human outlines. Some tall. Some small. Some crawling. None completely solid. The temperature plummeted. Every breath burned. The glow sticks dimmed. One of the figures stepped out of the fog. Not Emma. Not my father. Not me. A man in a black MCA uniform. His respirator was cracked. His badge read only D01. He slowly removed the mask. Underneath, he had my face. Only older. 20 years older. Covered in scars. His eyes were bloodshot from decades without sleep. He looked directly at me. And with a voice that sounded like mine after a lifetime of regret, he said, "I finally found the version of us that still has a chance." Then he raised a small recorder in one trembling hand. Press play. And I heard my own voice. Not from tonight. From a recording made years in the future. If you're hearing this, it means I failed again. If you're hearing this. The recorder crackled beneath the sound of distant wind. It means I failed again. The older version of me, D01, didn't move. Neither did the figures behind him. The fog swirled around their legs without ever touching the floor, as if gravity had simply given up inside the bunker. My own recorded voice continued. "I don't know which cycle you're in anymore." Cycle. The word hit me harder than anything I'd heard that night. I stopped counting after 300. My stomach turned. 300? No. I whispered. That's impossible. D01 gave me a tired smile. I said the same thing. The recording continued. "If you're still with Mom." She succeeded. My mother covered her mouth. "If she still remembers your name, tell her I'm sorry." She broke. Not a little. Completely. Years of fear collapsed into silent sobbing. I had never seen my mother cry. Not when Dad died. Not when I left home. Not once. Until now. I looked back at D01. "Who are you?" He answered without hesitation. "You. No. The part that stayed. I don't understand. You crossed the bridge." "I know." "No." He shook his head. "You kept crossing." He reached into his coat. For one terrifying second I thought he was drawing a weapon. Instead, he unfolded an old road map. Ash Creek sat in the center. Around it, hundreds of red circles, each one marked with a date. Every Wednesday. For years. Some circles contained one word. Reset. Others contained another. Failed. The final circle. Today's date. Blank. Waiting. The fog isn't hunting people. D01 looked exhausted. It's hunting decisions. That sentence hung in the bunker. Nobody spoke. Finally I asked, "What does that mean?" He looked toward Mercer Bridge. Or at least toward where the bridge should have been beyond layers of concrete and fog. "It doesn't care who you are. It cares what you choose." My head pounded. I don't remember choosing any of this. No. You made sure of that. Another memory surfaced. Not clear. Fragments. Government tents. Floodlights. Men in respirators. Emma asleep in my arms. Someone handing me a clipboard. A question. Only one question. If we erase your memory, will you make the same choice? Then white. Only white. I grabbed my head. What happened on October 18th? Nobody answered. Not Mom. Not D01. Not the figures. The answer came from somewhere else. A woman's voice. Behind me. "I'll show you." I turned. The faceless little girl was gone. In her place stood my wife. Not transparent. Not distorted. Perfectly real. She looked exactly like she had in the photograph. Except, she wasn't smiling. She reached out her hand. This time. Don't look away. The bunker disappeared. Not faded. Disappeared. I was standing on Mercer Bridge. Cold rain. Dense fog. Flashing emergency lights. Military vehicles blocked both ends of the road. Dozens of MCA agents aimed weapons into the mist. My wife held Emma against her chest. Emma was crying. Not because she was hurt. Because something inside the fog kept calling her name. One of the agents shouted, "It's coming!" The fog moved. Not drifting. Running. Like an avalanche made of cloud. Inside it, thousands of silhouettes. I heard voices. Every person I'd ever known. My father. My grandfather. Friends from school. Teachers. Neighbors. All begging us to come closer. Then I saw myself. Standing beside an MCA commander. The commander looked terrified. There's only one way to contain it. What? You have to make the same choice. What choice? He looked at me. Not the present me. The past me. If you stay together, it leaves with all of you. If you separate, it stays here. I looked toward my wife. Toward Emma? Toward the bridge. Toward the town behind us. More than 1,000 people waited there. Families. Children. Everyone. The commander whispered, "It wants one family. If it gets one, it leaves the town alone." The memory fractured. Pieces skipped. Like damaged videotape. I heard myself screaming. Heard my wife crying. Emma reaching toward me. "Daddy?" Then, my own voice. Broken. "I'll come back. I promise." The commander injected something into my neck. My vision blurred. The last thing I saw was my wife being carried into the fog, still reaching for me. Emma screaming my name. Then, nothing. The bunker snapped back into existence. I collapsed onto the concrete. Everything hurt. Not physically. Emotionally. The missing memory had returned. I remembered. All of it. I hadn't forgotten them. I had sacrificed them. My mother knelt beside me. "I'm sorry." I couldn't speak. Every promise I'd made. Every birthday. Every bedtime story. Ended on that bridge. D01 quietly said, "Now you understand why you wanted to forget." The fog outside the bunker stopped moving. Every silhouette became perfectly still. Thousands of motionless figures waited. Watching. D01 looked at me. "The cycle always ends here. Can I save them?" He didn't answer immediately. Finally, he said, "I've tried." He held out the recorder. "There's one possibility. Hope. Tiny. Fragile. Still hope." I grabbed the recorder. "What do I do?" "You refuse." "Refuse what?" "The bridge." "I don't." "You never stay away." He looked directly into my eyes. "You always believe." "This time will be different." A deep horn echoed across town. Not the siren. Something older. Louder. The fog recoiled. Every figure turned toward the sound. Even D01 looked afraid. "It found us." "What?" He whispered one sentence. "We were never hiding from the fog." The bunker ceiling split completely open. The concrete peeled upward. Not broken. Lifted. As though something unimaginably large had hooked its fingers beneath the entire house. The roof disappeared into white. Above us, something blocked the stars. Not a creature. Not exactly. A shape so vast I couldn't understand its size. It stretched across the entire sky. The fog wasn't surrounding it. The fog was pouring off it. Like rain falling from a mountain. Every human-shaped figure in the bunker dropped to its knees. Including D01. His voice shook. It woke up. The gigantic shape never fully emerged. My eyes refused to focus on it. Every time I tried, its outline changed. Building. Mountain. Face. Forest. Impossible. Looking directly at it made my nose bleed. The older me screamed. Don't let it see you! Too late. Something shifted overhead. Not physically. Mentally. For one impossible second, I felt it notice me. The sensation wasn't like being watched. It was like being remembered. The emergency tablet on the floor lit up one last time. Across the screen appeared a single line of text. Containment has failed. Then another. Beginning new iteration. The bunker vanished. The fog vanished. The older me. My mother. Everything. I slammed on my brakes. The truck skidded across wet pavement. White fog swallowed my headlights. The dashboard clock read 8:17. My phone buzzed. Mercer County Emergency Management. Fog event in progress. Do not exit your vehicle. If you hear someone you know calling your name, do not respond. I stared at the screen. My heart raced. I had no idea why tears were running down my face. Then, before I heard the first knock, I noticed something that hadn't been there before. Resting on the passenger seat was an old digital voice recorder. Its red light blinked once. Already playing. Through the tiny speaker came a familiar voice. Mine. Barely above a whisper. Daniel. Long pause. Whatever you do. The recording crackled. As if someone else had grabbed it. Then another voice spoke. Not mine. Not human. Calm. Ancient. Patient. You remembered more this time. 3 slow knocks echoed against the driver's window.